Okay, we're going to finish big time, big strong today. We've got some heavy hitters who are coming to bring the heat. This man needs no introduction, but everybody deserves an introduction. The legend himself. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ed Winn.
If ever a whiz there was, if ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here. I hope that you are. I'm on a fairly short leash, time-wise, so I will get right into it. I'm the APRO lawyer. I have been to all of the NBSRA. I'm going to have to say that till further notice, even though I know the name has changed. All but one. I missed the meeting here because you had to wear a mask on an airplane in that moment during the pandemic, and I don't wear masks, so I'm not a burglar. I'm not a robber, and I don't need to wear a mask. I do want to begin because I want to say the right things to you folks, as always, with a verse from the Psalms. I want to say it's chapter 14, verse 9, but it may not be. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. The words are right. The quote, where it is, close. So, ordinarily I can come to you and say, life in the rent-to-own world is calm and at peace, and you really have nothing to worry about, and here's a few little details about late fees and about liability damage waiver. A phenomenon occurred late last spring that I haven't seen in 30 years, that the New York legislature introduced two bills that would have put rent-to-own out of business in that state. Literally, the last time that kind of state legislative activity occurred was in California, 1997, when they passed the last really standalone RTO statute distinguishing RTO transactions from credit sales. So this is somewhat unusual to see an effort in an admittedly liberal state that would have simply repealed the safe harbor protections in the rent-to-own statute and then gone on to declare your rent-to-own transaction is a credit sale for all purposes, subject to a finance charge limit of 18% and a criminal usury limit of 25%. Now, can you do business with an 18% APR? I don't know. My TV and appliance guys certainly cannot, because they are renting things with a triple-digit APR if you were to make that calculation. That is the difference between the cash price and the total rent-to-own price. Can't be more than 18%. I doubt that would make you happy. What happened was, in New York State, you have to have bills introduced in both legislative sessions, both in the Assembly and in the Senate, before any activity can occur on a bill or on bills. There were bills introduced in both sessions, in both houses, Assembly and Senate, late in the session. May, I think, was when the Senate bill was introduced, House bill a bit earlier, and the New York legislature adjourned in June. So there were no hearings held, and those bills died. However, we have it on good information that those bills are going to be reintroduced in the new legislative session. We're going to have an election in November, and the opposition is lining up. It's not opposition to you guys. It's not opposition to the shed dealers. It's an opposition to the virtual rent-to-own industry, which I will get to in a minute, because it touches how you do business, or at least how some of you do business. And they're unhappy with some of the practices in that industry. That's different from the brick and mortar guys in the TV and appliance furniture world. And there have been some ugly lawsuits. I'm going to talk about those. So we anticipate a fairly unpleasant legislative battle in New York State. I've always maintained that we, the industry, we got better lawyers than the opposition, and that we will always be able to survive. But if the bills were to be enacted as were proposed last spring in New York State, we would be scrambling to come up with new ways to offer our products and services to our customers. So know that's going on. At the same time that's going on, the New York Attorney General has filed a class action lawsuit against one of the virtual companies. I guess I need to talk a little bit about what that means. Because those of you who don't have your own shed lots, those of you who are not retailing sheds and also renting sheds, those of you who simply are managing portfolios of rental agreements because there's a shed lot and he's got a customer that wants to do rent to own and he flips him to you and you fill out the paperwork and you are the lessor, but you never own that shed. You buy, well, you do own it. When the customer signs his rental agreement, you buy the shed from the lot owner. It's your shed, you're the lessor. You are a virtual rent-to-own dealer, VRTO. So are some of the public companies in the TV, appliance, and furniture world. One of them was sued by the Federal Trade Commission 2 years ago and settled that lawsuit for $175 million because of their business practices. They got kind of fast and loose with how they were doing business, much more so, and I'll give you some details. I don't think we've got those kinds of issues in this room, but I want to make real sure that we don't. Examples of things that were going on. First of all, that big lawsuit, $175 million. There's another lawsuit pending right now. There are two of them, actually. The Attorney General in New York State has filed one of the VRTOs, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, has filed a lawsuit against another virtual company. Virtual companies, remember, they don't own the product unless and until they have a customer who signed a rental agreement and they go and buy the product, be it a TV, be it a shed, from a retailer, and they then become the owners. They're the lessor, and that's how virtual works. And it's got some issues. One issue has to do with cash price. I'm going to suppose that if the cash price on the lot where it is for sale is $6,000, by the time it gets to a rent-to-own agreement, it's still $6,000. You see no particular reason to change that. Cash price, cash price, cash price. The virtual guys, on the other hand, are jacking the cash price in some instances. The cash price for the TV is $1,000 on the showroom floor at Best Buy or some electronic retailer, and the customer goes in to buy the TV and he can't afford it. So they run him through what's called waterfall financing. Well, let's see if we can get you a bank finance. Nope, they said no. Let's see if we can get you bank number 2. He said no. Let's see if we can get you finance company number 1. No. Finance company number 2. No. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's see if we'll put you in touch with a rent-to-own company, and maybe we can get that TV delivered today. So without a great deal of explanation, somebody says to the customer in the retail shop in Best Buy, sign here and we'll deliver that TV today. So the customer signs an agreement without having read it. One hopes that he could read it. He just didn't, although he may not have been able to. And he does, in fact, get the TV delivered today. What he signed was a rent-to-own agreement, but he didn't know it. He thought he was buying a TV. So now we have a confused customer. Not only that, the TV was $1,000 on the showroom floor, but by the agreement he signed, the TV was $1,100 cash price, because the lessor had jacked the cash price because he was in a state that caps the total cost. There's 8 of them: Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, West Virginia, Connecticut, so that you can only get, well, California, New York, 2.25 times the cash price. The other states 2 times the cash price. So the $1,000, we're going to be in Ohio for this example. The cash price is $1,000 for the TV, and the most you can ever get, no matter how long the customer rents that TV for, $2,000. You rent it for 18 months, rent it for 24 months, rent it for 36 months, rent it for 48 months, doesn't matter. $2,000 is all you can ever get. Same applies to you folks, for example. Remember that if you got price caps, even though you're running your agreements out way longer than I think you should. You know, when we got started, everybody was doing 36-month agreements. Now they're going 48, 60, 72, 84. Do I hear more? Do I hear longer yet? I hope not. It's the marketplace, and it's okay. It's not illegal. It's just expensive. So the dealer back in Ohio, the rent-to-own dealer has decided, the virtual rent-to-own dealer in Ohio has decided $2,000 is not enough to make. I need to make more money on that TV than $2,000. The only way I can do that is if I jack the cash price. So the cash price has suddenly become $1,100 to the customer, and that gives me now, as a lessor, $2,200, and that's more palatable to me, so I'm willing to do that deal. The problem is, boy, the optics on that are really bad. To be jacking the cash. Customer saw the TV on the floor for $1,000, and all of a sudden he's signing an agreement where in the same place, and he's seeing a cash price higher than what was advertised on the cash floor, on the sales room floor, and that looks like a deceptive trade practice. And guess what? It probably is. You're not doing that, I hope. The virtual companies are also misrepresenting how early purchase options work. They are advertising, for example, 100 days, same as cash, more or less. 90 days, same as cash. 3 months, same as cash. That's not a requirement anywhere. You guys are not doing that. Some of you are, in fact, have early purchase options that are more advantageous early in the deal, but not all of you are doing that yet. The problem is this. They were misrepresenting 100 days same as cash because the store personnel are telling the customer, if you just make payments for 100 days, you're going to own it, which is not true. Because if you make payments, regularly scheduled payments, it's going to take you 36 months to own that TV. You won't have paid the cash price for, let's go back to my $1,000, $2,000 example. You would not have paid even the cash price for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, certainly not in the first 90 days. And yet customers were being misled into thinking that if I just allow payments to occur, and the VRTO companies are signing up their customers on ACH payments, so their payments are automatic. They're either dinging the debit card, dinging the credit card, or pulling money out of the cash, which is okay, and I know a lot of you are doing it, and more of you should be doing it. Get your customers to sign up on ACH, then you don't have to ever bug them about payments, and they're going to pay you on time because it's automatic. And it's okay. But just having ACH payments taken out of an account over the course of 90 days does not end up in ownership. So customers are being misled a great deal about how the early purchase option worked. And they were finally masking the total cost. There has been, for as long as I've been a rent-to-own lawyer, a reluctance to tell customers that the $1,000 TV is going to cost $2,000, or the $6,000 shed is really going to cost $10,000. That if we tell them, if we ever show them that $10,000 number, they won't do the deal, which has never been true. All of your customers want to know, how much is it this month? And that's going to be, that's going to answer the question as to whether they do the deal or not. The fact that it costs $10,000 if they ultimately rent it for 72 months is such a long time. Are you even going to be around in 72 months to collect payments? I just wonder, some of you, I doubt you'll be around. As I look out there, others seem pretty hale and healthy, so you'll probably make it. That's just a phenomenon that occurred. And the paradigm, when I got started in talking to y'all, to the shed guys, was it was a $3,000 shed. The monthly rental payments were $138 a month and some cents, and it was a 36-month deal. That was just kind of how the business worked. Now I'm hearing you're renting sheds that cost $40,000, $50,000. I had a dealer tell me the other day that there's a $100,000 shed out there people can rent. Did you know that? I haven't seen it, but I hope it's big and I hope it's pretty. The $100,000 shed. And I hope they can rent it and pay you. What are the payments on a $100,000 shed? $1,000? Over $1,000. Got to be. Even if you run it out 84 months, you got to. That would only pay $84,000. No, that's it. If that's where the market's going, hallelujah. I'm talking to some soon-to-be well-heeled merchants, but that's expensive. That's expensive, and so that's a huge change that's occurred. The length of the agreements and the price of sheds is what's happened really in my little short lifetime of 12 years in the industry. So, back to the VRTO guys. FTC lawsuit. The CFPB only has jurisdiction over credit transactions. It does not have jurisdiction over rent-own. We were able to negotiate that with Barney Frank and some other friends of ours in the legislature back in 2010. So the CFPB, the Federal Consumer Protection Agency, does not have jurisdiction over rent-to-own, although they lament that daily and wish that they did. And they have sued now 2 companies claiming that they're not really in the rent-to-own business. They've sued virtual companies, that they are really in the small loan business because of how they are structuring their transaction with, they're not owning the merchandise, and they're not really merchants. They're not owning the merchandise until a customer has signed a rental agreement and they go and buy it from the retailer. So they never touch it. It gets delivered out of their hands. They, in the states where it's permissible, they don't repair it. They don't do anything except collect payments. And CFPB has argued that that's a small loan, that they've loaned the customer money. Even worse, when you run through the application in Best Buy, the guy wants to buy the TV, and they run an application through the rent-to-own company, and they come back and say, oh, you've got $5,000 worth of rent-to-own. I don't know whether they use the word credit, and I hope they don't, but you got $5,000 worth of credit if you want to rent $5,000 worth of product in the store and you only want $1,000 for the TV. Wouldn't you like to load up on some more property because we'll do deals with you for another $4,000? I don't think that's how you guys are dealing with your rent-own customers. You're kind of thumbs up or thumbs down on a customer getting a shed and that he wants, and you most of the time are saying thumbs up, yes, we'll do the shed deal. You're not trying to load other stuff onto him, and that sort of looks like when the VRTO guys are doing that, you got $5,000 that you can spend in this store and that we will make available to you. That starts smelling like a loan. So it's no surprise that the CFPB has questioned the truth that underlies those transactions. Now, there was in August, there was a ruling from a federal district court judge in Utah, which is where several of these virtual companies are based, that says if the contract says it's terminable at any time, that there's no obligation to keep making payments, it is by Yemeni a rental agreement, it's not a loan, and it's not a credit sale. And so he wiped out most of the claims that the CFPB had made against this company. However, the company was renting services. They were renting car repairs. They were renting engine repairs. They were renting paint jobs. So how do you give a paint job back? Well, the answer is you can't. And so the CFPB said, the judge said, you know, this whole thing about trying to rent services, that doesn't smell right, and I'm going to leave that issue open for further investigation. So you got to rent things that people can give back, or you're not really in the rental business. You're in the pretend rental business. And that's no surprise to the people in this room, but it's been a surprise to some of the virtual guys who sadly wake up every morning thinking, how much money can I make? I want to, this is a direct quote, I want to pick the lint out of my customer's pocket. That ain't going to last. That's not going to last. You aren't thinking that way. Please don't start thinking that way. The New York Attorney General lawsuit and the bills that are going to be pending, those bills are going to get reintroduced, we're told. We're in for a fight. It's going to cost some money in New York State, and if you've got sheds in New York State, you need to be paying attention to what's going on there. We'll keep the world apprised of what's going on there. We had a summit at the APRO convention in August called Protecting the Transaction, where we brought in some other lawyers to talk about things some vulnerabilities that they perceived in the marketplace that needed attention. Some of the conclusions or suggestions made was to make sure that your transaction and your relationship with your customers are transparent. You don't want to hide things. I started mentioning that there's great concern among some rental dealers. If I disclose the total cost, oh my God, I'll never rent another shed, I'll never rent another TV. That's not true. It's never been true. I don't want you to be thinking that way. As a result, some of the virtual rent-own companies who do business entirely on the internet set up a website. They show the product, the sofa, the TV. They show the rental rate, I don't know, $150 a month. And then there's some buttons. There's a big green button. Say, click here, and it will scroll you right through all of the language in the rental agreement down to the signature page. So the customer never sees any of the important financial information about the total cost, for example, cost of lease services, all of that just zooms by. Now, there's another button that you can push if you want to read the rental agreement, but how many people that are in a hurry to get the TV want to read a rental agreement? The answer is they don't. And so they were scrolling through, they weren't reading. They never saw the total cost because the company was able to mask it on the website, and it cost them $175 million. Don't do that. Train your partners. This industry is vulnerable. This industry is vulnerable, although it hasn't been attacked yet, because of the lack of paperwork between you. You got partners. Those of you who manage portfolios, you have retail partners, people who own those sheds on the lot. All of you've got relationships with drivers and trucks. Sometimes the driver owns the truck, sometimes he's an employee of the truck company. And you're doing business on a handshake in those relationships, which is lovely as long as everybody's honest and above board and friendly and nothing bad happens. But if the 18-wheeler falls off the bridge and crushes, I don't know, the motorcycle at the underneath, who's liable? Who's going to pay? That truck and that driver, they're your agents. That's your shed. That was your shed. It's smashed now on the back of the truck. So Law School 101, sue the rich people. That's what they teach us. And so if bad things happen and you haven't talked about it, thought about it, written about it, agreed to it in writing with your partners, then you're going to be defending a lawsuit, perhaps along with your partner. Same thing happens with shed owners, shed lot owners. And so one of these days, if I live long enough and you do, we'll start formalizing the relationships. I mean, I have written retail agreements with rental dealers and retailers, although I don't know that I've ever written one for a shed guy, and I've never written one for a truck and driver. But all that stuff ought to be in writing. And so maybe your trade association will help with that. I don't know, but I hope so. As wonderful as we would all wish the world to be, we know, because we are not naive, that there are bad people in the world. We got customers, not many, who are bad people. We also begin to see creeping into this industry some fraudulent retailer activity. There was a Connecticut guy, he's Greek, he's fled to Greece, that he made off with a couple of $100,000 from rental dealers, and here's how he did it. He said, hey, I got some sheds. I own some sheds. I bought out somebody that wanted to get out of the business. I own sheds. I want to rent them, and I want to partner up with you. I want to have them rented. I don't want to manage those accounts. I want you to manage those accounts. I want to have a relationship with you, and eager for new business as we all are, some of us said, yes, sign us up. We'll do business with you, without proper investigation. And so shortly thereafter, contracts came in, pictures came in of sheds in the backyard, driver's license, photos of John Smith, who signed the agreement, all of which is available on the dark web, I'm told. And the crook went around to neighborhoods and took pictures of sheds in backyards. New enough sheds that passed muster, maybe a little fuzzy, the picture, but it persuaded the rent-owned portfolio manager, okay, I'll write him a check. Looks like he rented this shed, looks like it's in the backyard. Guy got a picture of the guy, signed his name to the rental agreement, all made up, all fraud, and we're about $200,000 down. And the cops are looking for him, but he's in Greece. So don't be too eager to take on new retailers without doing a little due diligence, and at least see if they got, criminal records, and see if they're writing you from the penitentiary, see if, check some stuff out. And one of the dealers has a spotter, that drove around the neighborhoods to see if indeed the shed had been delivered in the backyard. He said, hey, there's a shed there. Here's a picture. It wasn't the deal. It was somebody else. It was just a house with a shed in the backyard. So pay attention. Pay attention. It's a tricky world out there, I'm sad to say. I'm a lawyer. I don't believe anybody. Y'all are Mennonites. You believe everybody. Somewhere there's a happy medium that we need to find. Somebody asked, most of the stuff I talk about, other than this legal stuff here, I talk about because rental dealers, shed guys have called me on the phone or sent me an email saying, hey, I got a question about this. What do you think? And I respond, and now you get to hear about it. Canada has this, you can do rent-own in Canada, but it has its own rules. You got to disclose an interest rate, and it's got to be under 60%. That's the gist of what I know about Canada. I don't really write agreements for Canada, but I got lawyers who do. If you want one, call me and I'll give you that information. Deposits. How big a deposit can I get? Sky's the limit, except California, 1 month. But anywhere else, is whatever the traffic will bear. Reserve accounts apparently still are alive and well. Dealers told me, early on I said, okay, let's do reserve accounts. People come and want to push money at you up front and lower rental payments. I said, fine, take the money, put it in a reserve account. It's not yours, you can't book it. Then I learned nobody does that. That's just a fantasy. That fewer than 5%, people in this room told me, fewer than 5% of customers ever come on the lot and want to, put money up, at least in any meaningful amounts. Then I heard a dealer this summer tell me 20% of my customers want to put money up front and reduce rental payments. So at 20%, you got to keep reserve accounts alive and well in your agreements, and they're legal insofar as I know, although they've never been challenged. There are places where I don't do reserve accounts or recommend against it. California, because it's, fruits and nuts out there. New York, I don't do it there either. Hostile environment. West Virginia, hostile environment. Those are really the big three. Maine and South Carolina have gotten fussy lately with other charges, and I probably wouldn't recommend it. Oh, and you can't do it in Indiana. They passed the law. So you cannot have reserve accounts in Indiana because the Department of Financial Institutions got the law changed and said you can't do it. A few years ago, somebody said, hey, I got a customer. He's paid off his shed. He's been a great customer, very timely. He wants to sell me the shed back and then rent it again, sale lease back. And I said up here to, gosh, a much smaller crowd, you can't do that. You can't do that. Sale lease backs are, I probably said they're not legal. It's not that they're not legal. It's that they are loans of money. So if you want to do business with a customer that loves you and that you love back, that has your shed and he wants to sell it back to you, and you want to do business with him and give him some more money for the you want to buy the shed back and then have him make payments, you can do that, but it's a loan and you need to be a small loan company, which means you're going to have to be licensed in your state. So it's not illegal, but it's not rent-own either. It's the loan of money. And so I know that you have good customers and you have a dearth of products available. I mean, how many lots, how many sheds can you put in the backyard? Well, no more than 2 or 3, I would think, realistically. And one of the things very much on my mind when I think about you guys is, what other products could you be renting, should you be renting? And if you look around your backyard, look around your own backyards and see what's there. I know it would change your thinking and make you think outside the box, but there's grills and there's benches and there's fancy patio furniture, all of which can be rented. You could acquire and rent and make money with. No, they're not sheds, but they are items in the backyard, and I wish you would think more about expanding your product mix, because you're one-trick pony with sheds. There's only so many sheds that we're going to rent to Americans, and so we're going to have to find some other products, and I want y'all to be thinking about that. Y'all got better imaginations than I do. Boy, I wish I had a trick, an illusion that I could get. I just don't, I just don't. Dang. All right, living in sheds. A dealer called and said, hey, a customer called, he wants to rent a really nice shed, $30,000 shed, and oh, by the way, my sister's going to be living in it, he said. What should I do? Well, wow. You don't want to turn down a $30,000 deal. At the same time, people living in sheds that aren't mobile homes or small homes, there's risk associated with that. So I didn't tell him don't do it, although that was the cautious advice. And I know you got people living in your sheds. They're just not telling you, and you find out about it. And all of your agreements say you can't live in the shed. We agree, no humans, no pets can live in the shed unless it's a pet house. And you're going to have people doing that. It's handier if you don't know in advance. I mean, the guy's renting a shed with his eyes wide open, knowing that the customer is in breach the day he signs the agreement, because the agreement says no people can live in sheds, and yet he knows his sister is going to be living in the shed. I told him to buy some insurance and do the deal. So I would tell you the same thing if you asked me, but it's not without risk. Fees. I'm trying to put some money in your pocket. You can be charging credit card surcharges everywhere but Connecticut and Massachusetts. You can charge convenience fees everywhere but Maine and South Carolina. Convenience fee is for credit card payments made over the phone. And it's not retirement money. It's $2 or $3. Hey, helps. So you can't do that, oh, by the way, without putting it in your agreement. You got to tell the customer, and you got to tell them in advance, every single time you go in his pocket, this is when we're going to go, and this is how deep. So if you want to charge convenience fees, if you want to have a surcharge on your credit card, you're paying it at the restaurant. You're paying a surcharge in the restaurant. You can charge a surcharge, except those 2 states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, where you can't. Surcharges, I don't know what those run. Those run 2-3%, I'm thinking. Likewise, LDW. I don't think LDW, liability damage waiver, has yet swept the industry, although it's easy money. And it works like this. Your agreement without LDW says if the shed gets damaged, destroyed, stolen, blown away, while you're renting it, you're liable. You, the customer, you're liable. LDW says, liability damage waiver says, that we, the customer, we, the company, in exchange for X dollars a month, that's $10 a month, we will assume the risk of loss or damage to the shed while you are renting it. So that if the limb falls and crushes it and you have a liability damage waiver, we'll fix it because you've been paying us an extra $10 a month. It is an option in 100% of the TV and appliance dealer world, and it's very hard for rental customers to get out of the store without agreeing to accept LDW. It has to be an option, and you can simply say, we got this program, would you like it? And it costs this much, and here's what it does for you. Because after all, how many sheds? Well, over 36 months, fewer. And as we move out to distance on these agreements, 48, 60, more and more bad things can happen to sheds, and so you may want to jack the price of LDW, which is regulated in some states, oh, by the way. The only place you can't offer LDW is California, because California sucks, okay? Be glad you don't live there. And I'm sorry, I know not to talk like that to you folks, and I don't usually. But it makes you laugh, and so I do it sometimes. ACH, if you have signed your customers up for ACH payments, credit card payments, debit card payments, ACH, ding in a bank account, be sensitive if your customer files bankruptcy, as they sometimes do, and you forget to cancel the ACH so that the customer's account still gets dinged after he's filed bankruptcy. You'll be held in contempt of court, the bankruptcy court, because you're taking money out of a bankrupt customer's pocket when you shouldn't be, and you're going to have to give all the money back, and you're going to have to pay a fine to the court. It's not going to put you out of business. It'd be $5,000 to $8,000 fine, but that can make for a crappy month. So pay attention. Don't do that. Don't do that. Track bankruptcies and see if that customer signed up for ACH. That's pretty easy. Pretty easy. Advertising. There's considerable vulnerability in RTO advertising. I see some lovely four-color brochures of sheds, really splendid, that advertise cash prices, that advertise rent-to-own, but that don't advertise what the monthly rental rate is, what the total cost is, and those are violations of the state advertising laws. So I hope you don't have 5,000 of those things pre-printed, but if you do, you need to put in an addendum that simply and it needs to, you can put it in a chart where if you rent it for 36 months, it's this much a month, and it's going to be, the total cost is this much, 48 months, this much a month, total cost, just, and have a little grid and stick that into the brochure. Because if you're advertising specific items, which those are, they're descriptions of specific sheds that are in your portfolio, and they have a price, cash price, then you need to be making all the rest of it. You need to be making the other, and the availability of rent-to-own, you need to be making the other financial disclosures that accompany the transaction. And I see brochures that have none of that. Now, is anybody chasing you? No, because you're on the side of the angels. And let's hope they never do chase you, but just know that you're exposed there. If you got sued, you'd lose. That's what I want to tell you. As low as is a price. So come rent sheds for as low as $99. That's a price, according to the Federal Trade Commission. Got to make disclosures. Somebody asked about investors. If I know that you have a lot of relatives that have invested in your company. If all you're doing is, if all that's happening is that they are loaning you money and you're signing a note, no problem. If, on the other hand, they are actually investing in your company, where they got a piece of the ownership or the possibility of a piece of your ownership, you have security issues. And the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so really what you need to be doing, if you are negotiating those kinds of deals with, well, even strangers, but certainly with relatives, you either need to create a private placement memorandum. Last time I looked, the big law firms wanted $35,000 to write those. It's a document that has the risks associated with investing in your company. Or you need to get your investor or potential investor to sign a sophisticated investor letter that says, I'm rich, I know what I'm doing, and I'm willing to take chances and invest in this company, and he signs his name, and then you're bulletproof. I have those letters. If you happen to need one, I'll send you a draft. It's just a draft letter that the Securities and Exchange Commission has. It's not a sophisticated investor letter, but it's some kind of investor letter. Anyway, do pay attention to that, because I know that goes on in this world. In your rental agreement, I am still seeing rental payments bifurcated. X%, here's your rental payment, $140 a month, or X% to principal and X% to something else. Don't do that. A rental payment is a rental payment is a rental payment, and it's 100% rental every single time. It doesn't. If you bifurcate it internally for your own bookkeeping purposes, I don't care, but don't be showing that to customers, because that's going to mislead customers into thinking that, oh goodness, I'm building up equity in that shed, and they're not. Because if they give it back, you don't have to give them back any refunds, and you don't want to be listening to them arguing why you should be giving them back any refunds. So those of you that are insistent on doing that, please quit. Likewise, I swear most of you, somebody early on said, oh, you got to disclose the actual tax amount for each payment. So I see rental agreement after rental agreement after rental agreement. It's $140 a month plus $6.22 tax. You could just say plus tax and then total it up somewhere else in the agreement if you like doing it. But here's the problem. Those tax rates change. So the $6.22, certainly over the course of 74 months, is likely to change. So you have an inaccurate agreement. And it'd be much better if you simply said plus tax without putting the number on there. And then also saying while you're at it, oh, by the way, tax rates are subject to change. Then you're golden. And you can change the tax rate without having to rewrite an agreement. Can you rewrite agreements? You can rewrite agreements every day if you want to. In order to bring you got a customer that's been driving you nuts. You finally got him to talk to you on the telephone. You don't want to pick up a shed, Lord knows. And so what you want to do is, I tell you what we'll do. Give me $100. I'll bring you current. We'll take all your past dues and push them out to the end of the agreement. Okay, that happens sadly daily, but better than picking up a shed. Can you do it? You bet. You bet. Rewrite agreements whenever you need to. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I would rewrite the agreement, because otherwise you got this old agreement that the customer's going to say, hey, look, this is what I should be paying. And you say, no, we changed that deal 4 times. And he says, prove it. Well, if you haven't rewritten the agreement, how do you prove it? Now you're in a liar's contest. So I want you to rewrite agreements and write them as much you need to. Cash prices of used, I don't know how you price used sheds. I wish you never had any, but you do have some. West Virginia and New York have very specific rules about pricing used sheds. Depends on how long they've been out on rent, depends on the shape they're in, this and that and the other. And so if you are wondering about how I ought to price my used sheds, you might look to the West Virginia grid or the New York grid that dictates how those sheds have to be priced, and see if that makes sense in your company. Well, gosh, I sure wish I'd have had some tricks. I'm sorry, illusions. I'm worried about New York. We're watching it closely. We got our guns loaded. We're ready to do battle with them up there, both the Attorney General and the legislature as needs be. Otherwise, life is good, and I hope it is for y'all. Thanks for having me. I love coming to these meetings. Thank you. I like talking to rental dealers. I'm happy to talk to your emails. Doesn't cost anything, oh, by the way. Send me an email, call me on the phone, ask me a question. I've just gotten to where I like talking to you. I'm interested in what's going on in your business, and so I'll give you an answer. I won't charge you. It'll be worth what you pay for it. Okay. There's my numbers.